So I know it's been a while since I've done a dedicated review for a Dresden Files book, but I'm going to blame that on the reason that when I am in the middle of this series, it is just hard for me to put these books down in time for me to do a dedicated review on an individual book. By the time I want to sit down and talk about one book, I'm already reaching the end of the next one. And that's kind of been my story of my relationship with this series for the last couple of books, which has made it really hard to sit down and do a dedicated review for any of them. That said, there has been one Dresden Files book I knew I wanted to do a dedicated review on, so here we are. Ever since the beginning of Stormfront, ever since I picked up that first book in the Dresden Files, everyone has been telling me, just wait until changes. Well, today we are going to be talking about and reviewing book number 12 of the Dresden Files, Changes. Let's do it. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome to Tall Guy Reads. My name is Alex, and yes, today we are going to be reviewing Changes, and I'm so excited for this one. Just a heads up, this video will be both spoiler-free and spoilers, so if you haven't read this book, don't worry, the spoiler-free section is going to be really generic and just some general thoughts, and so it doesn't even matter if you're all caught up to Changes or anything like that, but once the spoilers start, it is full, Wild West from there. So I will definitely make it clear when the spoilers start, and I highly recommend that if you haven't read Changes to go and read it and come back and watch this video, just because of how many changes exist in this book that will totally alter everything else moving forward in the series. So with that said, with that out of the way, let's stop wasting time and dive right onto this review, kicking it off with the spoiler-free section for Changes. Changes is the 12th book of the Dresden Files, an ongoing contemporary epic urban fantasy series that follows our main character, the wizard detective Harry Dresden, as he battles a number of threats that are both paranormal, supernatural, magical in many different ways that both threaten him as an individual, but also the ones he loves and the city that he loves. This takes place in Chicago, in modern day Chicago, and you really have an awesome blend of this epic urban fantasy feel with a lot of, really intricate world building as the series moves on. And I'm going to say that I think 12 books into the series, there have kind of been multiple phases for this series so far. I think in the first couple of books, Stormfront, Full Moon, and Grave Peril, you have your kind of popcorn read mystery detective books with a little bit of a magical twist. And so you kind of, Harry gets a case, he solves the case in some way, shape, or form, and you move on to the next one. The next phase of the series kind of opens up the world a little bit. You start getting introduced to more of the different factions of kind of magical entities and magical powers at play. And you start seeing, just how powerful these different beings are, whether it's the Fae, whether it's vampires, whether it's more lore and more information around the wizards themselves. And this kind of starts to expand in the next couple of books. And I think it moves into a third phase, which is kind of where Changes is sort of lies, in the sense that this is kind of where Harry grows as a person. He's constantly growing from the beginning of that first book to now, but I do think there's a section of books in this series that really, really prioritizes Harry's growth as an individual, and a lot of it's done on an internal level based on some harrowing experiences that he goes through. And so this is something that I've really enjoyed, and I think while I've had fun with the series, once I made it to this phase of books, and once I started hitting books like Proven Guilty and White Knight and Small Favor and Turncoat and obviously Changes, my whole perspective on Harry as a character totally shifted, and I just found myself gravitating to him significantly more than I might have in the past. Book number 12, Changes, is the total let's sweep the rug out from under you. This is the book that absolutely changes every single thing about the series in so many ways, and in my opinion, for the better. I think this is what I wanted the Dresden Files to be for so long. This was the ultimate book that had everything I loved about the series so much. It had the really great action, the stuff that I know Jim Butcher can write so well. It had awesome magical entities, you have a lot of different magical beings, and you have a lot of challenges that Harry must face internally and external that absolutely will have repercussions, already have repercussions, and will totally shift everything moving forward, in my opinion. I will say I did kind of expect this to be the case, a book called Changes, and so the amount of hype that is around a book like this made me believe that going into this, I was like, something big is going to happen. This is going to totally change my view debut on the series in some way, shape, or form. And wow, I mean, it is very rare for a book to live up to the hype that is placed around it by the book community, and especially something like Changes, which the hype is just, it's almost indescribable how many people just adore this book and always push this book as being like, just wait till you get here. This is the one you got to read. This is the one that's going to change everything. And so there is a lot of doubt going into a book like this, and you kind of are looking for things, picking things apart as you're going along, be like, what do people see in this? But very, very quickly, you'll be like, screw it, this is awesome. This has everything. And that was kind of like me. I think within the first few sentences of this book, I was like, okay, we're going on a roller coaster. I'm in. And from that point on to the final words of this book, it was just hell's bells, craziness, and I was absolutely loving it so much. I mean, I read this book in 36 hours. I could not put this book down. I was literally looking for places to put this book down, but Jim Butcher just kept saying no. He would keep ending the chapters with cliffhangers or in some way, shape, or form that made me want to keep reading no matter what. And it just made it almost impossible for me to put this book down. Changes has everything. Like I said, it has all the action scenes, all the great action that I know Jim Butcher can write so well. It has the twists and turns and the kind of the mystery side of the things that we are used to with the Dresden Files at this point. You kind of have that investigative nature for sure. You have a lot of the great side characters. I think the cast that is assembled for Changes specifically is just amazing. It is just an awesome fellowship, if you will, of a group of people that I just absolutely love. And more importantly, the actual heavy emotional character scenes in this book are top notch. I mean, these are some of the best and most compelling emotional scenes I've read in quite a bit of time. These are so good. And I definitely think so much of it is built up from the fact that I've read 11 books leading up to this that built up the characters, built up Harry, built up the side characters around Harry and everything else that is going on, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the actual scenes themselves in Changes are very well written, because man, they are just so good. And I was just sitting there just kind of in awe that I was feeling as emotionally invested as I was in the Dresden Files. I just didn't feel like I was that emotionally invested in these characters until certain scenes and Changes, and I was like, damn, okay, here we are. You got me, Jim Butcher. You got me. Changes absolutely throws Harry Dresden in the most challenging situations that he's experienced yet, both emotionally, both physically, both on an internal and external level. Harry has never faced what he's going to be facing in Changes, and it really just has you on the edge of your seat. It had me gripping these pages so hard. I needed to know what was going to happen. And I genuinely, for many different times in this book, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if Harry's going to, win this or is going to live to fight another day. I just don't know. And I think that uncertainty that Jim Butcher was placing with me in this character of Harry and the situation that he was put in was just so unique. And I really loved it. Changes is a very special book. I think it has absolutely zero fat to it. This is a book that is extremely well plotted. It is from the first sentence, and if you've read the book, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That first sentence to the last few words of this book is just all out roller coaster. There is nothing stopping this book, and I was impressed. Honestly, I'd heard this going into this book, and I was like, no way. No book is all go from the beginning, truly. But yeah, this book was all go. There was nothing in this book I would have taken out. There's nothing you could have taken out. If anything, I was just like holding my breath because everything was moving so fast and there was so much big emotional trauma and stuff going on within this book that I was just like, oh my God, I need to collect my breath. And it was just not going to happen. Not going to happen until I finished the book. So it was a very unique reading experience for that reason. And it really adds so much more stress to the whole situation as you're reading this story that Harry and the side characters are experiencing in Changes. Changes is the book that I was waiting for. This was the Dresden Files book I have been wanting since the moment I started reading this series, since I started seeing things that I really connected with. I felt like Changes had all of the good things, none of the bad. It had expert pacing. It had these incredibly emotional, consequential scenes. It has wonderful character execution and character growth with the main characters and the side characters. Awesome world building. The action, again, is just top notch in this book. It's crazy. And there's just a lot of questions that are both answered, but also that are created in this book that I really am curious about that I totally think are going to change everything moving forward for this series. But overall, Changes was an absolute knockout for me. Yes, this book lived up to the hype. It is easily my favorite Dresden Files book so far. And I think followed right behind it would be Small Favor. But overall, I just love this book. I just really had a great time with it. This was just such a unique reading experience for me, and it was so much fun. So with that said, I'm going to conclude the spoiler-free section, and we are going to talk spoilers. So I'm going to give everyone here a few seconds. You have 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's talk spoilers for Changes. Okay, so let's kick it off with the first sentence of the book, because there were multiple people who told me, Alex, I can't wait to see what your reaction is to the first sentence of the book. And I was like, okay, should I read it right now? And they were like, do not read it until you plan on reading the entire book, because you won't want to put the book down after you read that first sentence. And I was like, what in the world could this possibly be? But yeah, they were right. The first sentence of Changes is, I answered the phone and Susan Rodriguez said, they've taken our daughter. That is talk about a loaded statement. One, I feel like we haven't really seen Susan in a while. Also, the fact they've taken our daughter. Okay, what did I miss? What happened between the last book and this book that I missed? And all of a sudden you realize, okay, things just changed completely. And yeah, it totally changes the course of everything moving forward. I think right from the beginning, there are multiple major changes within this book, obviously. And I think it definitely earns the name of Changes for the book title. But I think right from the get-go, this is one that obviously is probably the biggest one that will entirely shape this entire book, but also Harry as a character, what he values. He's always been a person that's valued people that are important to him. He's always put others before himself, especially those that he really cares about, whether it's Murphy, whether it's Michael Carpenter, whether it's Thomas. Doesn't really matter. He's always looking out for those. But when he finds out that he has a daughter, man, this is going to challenge everything. This is really going to put that to a test in a way that I truly believe that he is going to go into this and do whatever he possibly can to find his daughter, no matter what consequence it deals him. And that's exactly what happens. Wow, this is a wild ride. So yes, Susan and Harry have a daughter. They have a daughter, and Susan obviously has been taking care of her in some way, shape, or form, has not been telling Harry about her at all. And so this is the first time Harry is hearing about her. And so you have both the battle of, oh, I need to find my daughter, and also, oh, what daughter that Harry is going through for the first half of this book is really interesting. But you find out that the daughter of Maggie, by the way, is actually kidnapped by Ariana, who is the Duchess of the who is a Duchess and I believe widow of the Red Court Duke, who was killed a few years ago in previous books. But this is a situation at play. And so Harry is trying to, one simple plot, Harry is trying to rescue his daughter who has been taken from Duchess Ariana of the Red Court. And so while it seems simple, there's so many layers to this, and there's so many mysteries, I would say, about why his daughter was taken in the first place. So this is kind of the main plot thread that is established in the beginning of this book. Harry is trying to look for his daughter who has been taken by the widow Duchess Ariana of the Red Court. He goes through a lot of different random stabs at trying to figure out what's going on in the beginning part of this book, including one that deals in repercussion of his whole office building being blown up. And this results in him actually going under investigation by the FBI. And when this started happening, I was like, man, this is just going to be annoying, isn't it? They're going to show up at the time that Harry least needs them to be there, and they are just going to cause so many headaches for Harry. And so I was annoyed by that, but not in a way that made me dislike that part of the book. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is where the story's going. But at the same time, Harry is also really trying to do whatever he can to find his daughter. So Harry talks to his fairy godmother, who redirects his attention to the Norse god Odin. Let's talk about something that I didn't expect to happen in this book. This was awesome. One, I was like, wait, what? Mythology? But this was a really great scene with Harry meeting Odin, and just kind of you get a whole new viewpoint on how how historic and how ancient some of the magic is in this world, in this modern day contemporary world, and how ancient it truly is. But Odin is the one that tells her that, hey, Maggie has been taken by the Red Court because they are going to use her for a blood curse that will curse everyone related to her. So that includes Harry, that includes Susan, that includes some other people that we were talking about in a minute, and it will just absolutely annihilate the entire family line. And so this is why why they took her. He still doesn't know why they would want to do this, but it is very clear that, okay, they took her for a reason. It's a very bad reason, and Harry needs to find her as soon as possible. And this is one of the reasons why I couldn't put this book down, because I couldn't comfortably go to sleep not knowing what the hell was going to happen next. So at this point, this is when Harry really gets confronted with a huge challenge that I probably say the biggest challenge in the book so far. And this is when he returns home. His whole place gets firebombed. He basically has his back broken and he's not able to walk. And honestly, when he was in the hospital or wherever he was, and they were saying, hey, you might not be able to walk, he can't feel his legs, and he keeps saying, oh, I can't feel my legs, I genuinely was wondering, okay, is this the direction that this story is going to go in? Is Harry just not going to be able to walk for the rest of the books? Like, that's one of the major changes. And it honestly wouldn't have surprised me. I would have been like, okay, I wasn't expecting that, but I would be very curious to see how this would affect everything. But no, this actually leads to another decision by him. He visits Mab of the Winter Court, Queen Mab, who has been trying to get Harry for many, many books to join her as the Winter Knight. And basically, the Winter Knight for her would be like her right-hand man, the one that will do anything that she bids. That's her view of this. Her view is that the knight will do whatever she asks, no questions asked, and no matter how bad and dark and unsatisfying it might be. And so Harry, in order to figure out what is going to happen next, because he feels like he has no other support. He feels like the White Council of Wizards is not there to help him search for his daughter, because at the one time they can't even know that he has a daughter. They just know that he's looking for a little girl, but they don't really see it as important because he can't tell them that she's her daughter, because that will invite a whole new host of complications with the fact that, okay, Harry is a wizard who has a daughter that he had with a vampire. And so it creates a lot of confusion. But Harry is with Queen Mab. She offers him again the knighthood position, the Winter Knight, and this would allow Harry to walk again. This would give him the strength and the energy that he needs to go back stronger than he was before, but he would also owe a huge debt to Queen Mab, and he'd kind of be under her rule. So during this whole thing, I actually was so torn on where I wanted Harry to go. I was like, dude, don't take it, because I feel like nothing good is going to come from this. But at the same time, I was kind of like, yeah, take it. I really want to see like Harry full-on Winter Knight, just murking everyone. But I do think that it was just so interesting. And this entire scene was just very complicated. I didn't know how this was going to play out. And I was really just yelling at Harry to be like, dude, get out of here. There's other ways that we can handle this. But actually looking at it, there's not really. This is really the one situation, the one road that Harry has available for him to turn to, and it really changes everything. Another change. But he says, okay, he takes the deal. He will become her Winter Knight if she gives him the power to, help to find his daughter and also be able to walk again and be powerful again and just get his strength back. And the only thing is, she makes him kill the previous Winter Knight in order to secure his place as the current Winter Knight. And this is a heavy scene. This is one of the heaviest scenes in the entire series so far. So Harry is looking down at the previous Winter Knight, who is Lloyd Slate, and he is just battered, broken, absolutely distraught. He has just lost all sense of identity to himself. Everything has been stripped away from him. And Harry's like, I can't believe I have to kill this guy. This guy seems like he is inviting death already. He seems like he's been wanting to die for a long time. And so this is a really heartbreaking scene. Hey, you can only imagine what Harry is going through during this decision, where it's like, I need to find my daughter. The only way I can find my daughter is to have the power to be able to do so. And the only way for me to have the power to be able to do so is to take this deal with Mab. So he does end up killing Lloyd Slate, and this was just a heavy scene. And even though, this is kind of an inevitability, I knew this was going to happen, or I had a good feeling it was going to happen. You absolutely know that this is going to deal with some repercussions for the rest of the book and the rest of the series, both internally on Harry's just mental state and how he deals with everything and how he handles death and those that are close to him, but also on an external state. I mean, he's now the Winter Knight. And despite the fact that, yes, he has his power to walk again and he has strength again to take on this new challenge, this is not coming out. This is not going to happen without a significant price to his well-being in some way, shape, or form. So from here, we kind of get this fellowship almost of people that are going out on this journey to go find Harry's daughter. And so you have the fairy godmother that is there to support Harry. You have Molly, you have Karen Murphy, who I love. You have Sonia, who just showed up in the nick of time. We have Thomas, who is I also just love. I mean, Thomas is an awesome character. And then we have Martin and Susan. And so they go on to go try to find Harry's daughter. Harry has received this tool, this amulet that was, I believe, from his mother, which it gives him a power to kind of see, fast travel in some way, shape, or form. And it's basically fast travel. It allows him to jump huge parts of the world very, very fast. And I like this. I've never have a problem with fast travel in fantasy or science fiction. And the way it was done being this natural ability that was given to him, that was passed down from his mother and in the beginning of this book, and gave him this kind of way to see everything in the world and get to wherever he wants at the drop of a hat was really awesome. I really like this. So I'm glad he got that. That allows him to travel to the Yucatan and in Mexico significantly faster than he would have without it. And this is where we kind of get the whole final act of what is happening in Changes and where his daughter is. So they show up here with the full belief that they're going to go try to confront the Red Court in some way, shape, or form and take Harry's daughter to safety. But what they realize before they even get there is that, their plan has immediately gone down the drain as soon as some Red Court vampires start attacking them. And they're like, okay, well, now they know we're here. So they attack them, they move closer, and they start making their way to kind of the pyramid, where the entire Red Court and the Red King are currently being housed and housing themselves for this ritual. And so as they get here, this is just a scene that I'll never forget reading. Just Harry coming in, and there's just all of these Red Court vampires who are just looking at them. There's thousands and thousands of Red Court vampires that are just staring at this group, this fellowship, kind of making their way into this danger zone to try to confront the Red King of the Red Court. This was just a heavy scene. This is something that, man, I've been waiting for books since we started really getting this whole Red Court versus White Council duel and kind of war that is going on. And this whole confrontation was just kind of unexpected. I didn't really see us getting this massive confrontation with the Red Court and Changes, but did we? Harry gets the Red King to allow him to duel Ariana, Duchess Ariana, who is kind of in a power play in order to get the Red King removed from power because she believes that his time is up. And so the Red King agrees, okay, you can duel Ariana. If you duel Ariana, then we can talk. Harry believes that what this means is that, okay, if he duels Ariana, then he can get his daughter back and his daughter will be safe. And so the Red King's like, yeah, your daughter will be safe until the end of the duel. And he's like, okay, sure. So they do duel. He ends up defeating Ariana in a very brutal way, but it was so satisfying. I mean, there's the final conclusion, he basically decapitates her at the end of this duel. I was just like, damn, Harry. Harry is out for blood. This is something that I've always loved about Harry. He is so passionate about those that he is close to. He's willing to do whatever he possibly can to save the ones that he loves. And when it comes to his daughter, who he has never met, remember, he's never met this daughter. He didn't even know he had a daughter until the beginning of this book. He is willing to do the darkest and the most depraved things that he can in order to make sure that she is safe, no matter how much it may impact him on an internal and external level. So he kills Ariana, she's taken care of, and the Red King of the Red Court is like, okay, well, now that she's taken care of, now we can get back to the situation. She's been taken care of, I have full power, and I don't have to worry about her anymore. Harry immediately is like, what? You told me that, my daughter is going to be safe. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said she'll be safe until the end of the duel. And so this is kind of like the expected thing that you knew was going to happen. There was no way he was just going to hand over the daughter so quickly. But once this happens, a whole kind of battle starts breaking out. And you have this fellowship of people with all of the people that came with Harry versus the Red Court. And man, this is just absolutely epic. So So there's a lot of stuff that is happening on the page in this moment because there's a lot of chaos and battle that is breaking out. But one thing I do want to mention is Murphy, after Harry became the Winter Knight, Murphy kind of gained custody over the two swords, which are Amarocchius and Fidelicius, I believe. Murphy takes the sword. She kind of gets doused in this shining white armor in the scene, and she has the voice of the knight of the original, this protector of the sword, the original one, starts kind of speaking through her and announcing himself to everyone around her. And it's not Murphy that's speaking. It is this third party presence that is from kind of presenting itself through the sword. And this is just an epic scene. And I've always loved Murphy, but I always appreciate Murphy both for her devotion to Harry and her trust in Harry and her dependability on Harry, but also just as a character. She is so great. She is just such a relatable character. I love how passionate she is about what she is, about the people she loves, despite the fact that even though she loves her job so much, she loves her job as a detective and a police working in the Chicago PD so much, she has put that on the line many, many times, and here is one of the biggest times ever. And so she kind of, for a moment, becomes this knight, and it is just so epic to watch. Also, at the same moment during this battle, we get the Grey Council who shows up with Ebenezer and the god Odin, and they're here to help out our fellowship as they battle the vampires. And this helps out a ton because before this, I was like, there's no way we're going to get out of here. But this is also where we figure out, okay, why was Harry's daughter taken to begin with? Because yes, we know why they're using her, because the blood curse will annihilate Harry's family and all this stuff, but why? Why was that even chastened to begin with? And the reason is because Ebenezer is Harry's grandfather. So this is something that I love. This is one of those reveals that I was just so happy about because I love Ebenezer and I love his relationship with Harry already. But just to know that there's actual a family, familial bloodline relationship in there as well just makes this like, damn, I am so emotionally invested in you now. You better not, you got to stick around. So this was such an awesome reveal. I was so happy for this. But essentially, he is the one that killed the Duke that Ariana was Duchess to, and that she is now a widow of. Well, now she's dead, but who she was a widow of. And Ebenezer was the one that killed him. And so she took the youngest member of the family, which is Harry's daughter, in order to annihilate the entire family. And the way to get back to Ebenezer. But we realized that, okay, so that is kind of out the window now in terms of what the actual original intention was going to be because Ariana is dead, but the Red King absolutely still plans on going forward with her plan in this instance. So this happens, and at the same time, Martin, who I wanted to punch through the freaking book for a few seconds, seemingly betrays everyone and then is like, okay, no, I'm with the Red King. I've been working with the Red King this entire time. You guys are all fools. I've got you fooled. And this causes Susan to lose her shit. She loses everything. She becomes full vampire. She goes full crazy on him and just loses, absolutely, wrecks him and really grows into a full vampire finally. And this is something that, they've been trying not to have happen for ever since the third book, but it's something that, here it is. So this happened, and you realize that Harry realizes during this entire thing that the reason Martin did this was because he actually is kind of like a double agent. Red King thinks that he's spying for the Red King, but he's actually not. He is doing this whole thing because it's presenting Susan with the one chance that is able for her to kill the Red King and kind of destroy the Red Court entirely. This is the one moment that will present itself. And because of this, because of the fact that he confessed to being a spy and confessed to being a traitor, this really infuriates Susan. She kills him, and all of a sudden she's a full vampire who is now eligible to kill, take down the Red Court. So this introduces us to probably one of the most emotionally heartbreaking scenes I have ever read, and the 4 lines at the end of this chapter just absolutely broke my heart. So Harry decides, okay, the best thing that we need to do, he and Susan both decide this, but they're like, okay, we need to this is the only way this is going to happen. So he does decide to kill Susan, essentially, put her on the altar and have her be the sacrifice that kind of wipes out everything and will eventually destroy the Red Court. Because since the bloodline curse is a loaded gun in many ways, now that Harry and Susan and Martin have kind of redirected where it's aimed, Susan is now the youngest member of the Red Court. And so if she gets killed, if she goes under the knife for this bloodline curse, everyone in the family, which is the entire Red Court, as she is now part of a full vampire within the Red Court, will be killed as well. So this is what happens, and you know that this is something that has to happen. You know, I can't even imagine what Harry's experiencing at this moment, and it's just so devastating to read. So after he kills Susan and it basically kicks off the annihilation of the Red Court, Harry ends this chapter in the most heartbreaking way possible by saying 4 lines that I will never ever forget. I used the knife. I saved a child. I won a war. God forgive me. These 4 lines were so heavy. I remember I was doing immersion reading for this part of the book, and I literally probably went through this like 4 or 5 times because I was just like, wow, this was just something else. It was just hit me so many levels. But this does lead to the annihilation of the Red Court, which was surprising. I actually expected them to last significantly longer in the series, but no, this is it. They completely destroy the Red Court. The Red King dies as well, and basically everyone who is kind of left, the stragglers that are left, are basically destroyed and killed by the prisoners that they had captured, who are now just really angry and trying to get their revenge, understandably. But this is the kind of the moment, the happy moment, but it's also very bittersweet because Harry went through a lot to get here, but he did save his daughter. So in this moment, he's like, I can't even take this daughter. I cannot be the one. This daughter will not have a good life under me. So with the help of his fellowship people, he gives Maggie, or he wants to give Maggie to Father Fordhill and basically tell him, I need her to be in the safest place possible, but it can't be with me. And so, this was another really tough decision that was just like, wow. I mean, the amount of trauma, the amount of anguish that you went through to save her, and despite the fact all of that, that she can't be with you and you can't be the father that you may want to be, is just heartbreaking. And I think this is one of those moments where I'm just like, Harry Dresden, I love you. I just want to give you a hug, man, because this is just some of the hardest stuff you could ever go through as an individual. And it's all happening to you so fast, and just some of the most incredibly devastating ways. So this is a choice he has to make. It's a choice he does make. And basically the book kind of wraps up here, except for a moment where he's with Murphy and they're on a boat, and he is kind of like, she's like, she finds out she got fired, and he's like, well, you could become a knight, all these things. And she's like, I think for the time being, I'm going to go out, have a date. I'm going to go sleep with some random guy, the first guy who gives me attention or whatever. She says something like that. And he's just like, how about I do? How about you? How about I go? He just like offers himself, and finally, it really seems like they are going to finally hook up and finally be a couple. And I was so anxious. I was so excited for this because I love them. I love their dynamic so much, and I have been rooting for them to be together for a long time because I just think they work so well together, and they really complement each other in so many different ways. And as everything seems so happy and glorious, we get the end of the book in which we hear Harry Dresden gets shot. He gets thrown over the side of the boat from the impact of the bullets. He hears some voices outside, and he starts seeing the light at the end of the tunnel as he kind of sees this vision of a train coming towards him. And so presumably Harry Dresden is dead, and that is the end of changes. So just when you thought that all the changes that could have happened, there's one more major change that Jim Butcher absolutely lands right at the end of this book. So, that is kind of what happens. I know there's a bunch of other stuff that happens in this book as well. I just didn't want the video to go so long, but this was so much fun for me. I loved this book so much. Every single scene was just so engaging to me, and every single chapter was impossible for me not to read the next chapter. I needed to know what was going to happen. And just the emotional weight behind this book, I think, is what really made this one stand out for me, because even if I enjoyed elements of other books more or less than Changes, I think the overall package deal of Changes, when it comes to the plot, the pacing, the characters, the action, everything that is in this book is just everything I love about this series in one book. That plus the emotional weight, which we just have not seen to this level in this story yet, was just, it was just something special. The only thing I wish was in Changes that we didn't get was Michael Carpenter, but I actually don't know what we're going to see of Michael Carpenter in the future. I'm hoping we get more of him, really hoping we get more of him because I love his character. But I also don't want him to just constantly be the collateral damage for the chaos that Harry is going through. So for the moment, I'm glad Michael Carpenter stayed out of this craziness. He needs to just recoup and focus on getting back and getting healthy. But wow, this was an awesome book. I'm so thankful to everyone who told me to keep reading the series. Keep reading the series. You'll get to a place where this will really turn into something that you will really enjoy, because you are enjoying certain elements of it that I was enjoying certain elements of it that a lot of fans were like, okay, you're going to love this series. Just give it some time. So I am very happy that I took like a 6-month gap after reading Deadbeat and just kind of not really approaching and returning to the series until I was excited to do so. I think that really helped me. And now I'm kind of on a roller coaster where I don't want the series to end. So I am probably going to be reading Ghost Story pretty soon because I need to know what's going to happen. And I really didn't want to start it until after I filmed this video. So that was a big thing. But from now, I want to read this ASAP because I've heard that this is very different from the rest of the books in the series, but based on the title, Ghost Story, and based on the fact that Harry dies at the end of Changes, I can draw some conclusions of where I think this story is going to go, and I'm very excited and interested to see how it is executed. But overall, I loved this book. Changes, book number 12 in the Dresden Files, was an absolute 5-star read for me. There was nothing I did not like about this book. It hit every single thing that I wanted it to hit and more. The entire package deal of it was just top-notch. Jim Butcher really executed on so many long-term plans that he had being established from book to book to book, from all the way from Stormfront to, Deadbeat and Small Favor and Turncoat and all the other books in between. And all of it just accumulates into this book of Changes that really will change everything moving forward. I'm excited to see what's to come. I think this is one of those books in the series that will kind of improves every book that comes before it. It's the book that as soon as I finished Changes, I was like, I would actually really love to reread the first book. I would love to reread Stormfront. I know that's a weird thing to say because a few books ago I'd be like, I would never want to read that book again. It just was not a book I really enjoyed more than just like liking a little bit. But now I want to reread it and I want to see young Harry and just see how much he changed, because man, he really has. And I just think there's so many decisions that he made that he had to go through during this book. And I'm very curious, anxious, and excited to see how they play out in the future. But overall, there you have it. Those are my thoughts, my spoiler-free and spoiler-filled thoughts on Changes, book number 12 in the Dresden Files. I am so excited to continue on with the series. I'm going to be trying to do more of these dedicated reviews for the following books, just because I've heard that they are crazy and heavy, and the story just keeps getting heavier as we move on. So I am going to try to do some more Dresden content, especially from this point on, and probably some full series content when I'm all caught up for sure. And I'm really excited for that because this series has really grown to something that I really am having a lot of fun with. And so I definitely owe it to all the Dresden fans out there who just kept pushing me along. Really owe it to you guys. You have sold me on the series more than you can imagine. So I hope you guys loved this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this content. If you do, please think about subscribing, hitting that bell notification down below if you want to get updates of new videos as they come out. Hitting that like button helps me out, helps the channel out a lot, and I really appreciate it. But with all that said, I hope you guys have a fantastic day.